Well, it probably won't surprise you to learn that I'm here to catch a train. I just hope it gets here on time.
So yes, obviously a train, but no ordinary train. One that a lot of people are very interested in.
There's quite a lot of people on this platform. I don't know how many are actually getting on the train, how many are just here to see it.
And naturally, things are not going quite according to plan.
So of course the train is now late, but I don't know how late it is because it's actually not in any of the apps or even on the electronic departure boards at the station. I hope it comes soon. It's cold out here. That's not it. Well, that's a positive sign, I suppose. There's just been an announcement that the train is about 25 minutes late. This is also not it.
Germans do love their historic trains, and this is the land of the society. So, of course, there are many societies that maintain and run old trains. This one is a Class 52, originally built in 1943, but the coaches are from the 50s and 60s and were in regular use right up until the late 1990s. I've said this before, but you know you're getting old when you board a historic train from a museum and you recognise it.
Sehr geehrte Fahrgäste, schönen guten Tag, schönen guten Morgen und recht herzlich willkommen hier am Postfach Nostalgiezugreisen Sonderzuges nach Wertheim. Wir haben jetzt leider knapp eine Dreiviertelstunde Verspätung. Leider gab es auch technische Probleme bei den Bahnhöfen, dass der Zug leider nicht übertragen worden ist an die Bahnsteiganzeiger.
Ah, that explains that mystery then. Anyway, now that we're underway, I'd better get my breakfast while I still can. Of course, since this train is staffed by volunteers, service can be quite slow.
So I just failed in my attempt to get breakfast because I now have to get back to my seat. So basically, we're a historic train. We're about to go through some very modern tunnels, but this train doesn't have all the modern technology, which means that for safety reasons, we're only allowed to use this tunnel if everybody takes their seat and promises not to use the emergency brake.
And so we have a guard in each coach who will, if there is a problem, contact the driver by walkie-talkie and have the train stop at a designated place where it can be evacuated or reached by emergency services.
Yeah, it seems like they don't even have electric lights. Finally.
The train started its journey at the Railway Museum in Darmstadt, and then, because the direct line is closed for engineering works, called at Hanau before making its way to Aschaffenburg. Right now, it is cutting across the Spessart forest before rejoining the River Main, which follows a very complicated course, and continuing to Würzburg. From there, it will make its way to Lauda and then follow the River Tauber to its destination, which is Wertheim. And now that we're out of the tunnel, we're free to move around.
Okay, let's try for breakfast again. At last.
In case you're thinking that we're moving really slowly even for a steam train, you're right. The Class 52 was built for freight, not passenger services, and so has a top speed of only 65 kilometers an hour.
So we're just coming into Gemünden, where we're going to take on some water, which will take a little while, which means that we can step outside for a few minutes.
And since the original infrastructure is no longer there, the local fire brigade has to help out. And you might have heard me say that this locomotive was built in 1943, and yes, this was during the Second World War. The Class 52 was designed to use less materials than its predecessors and could be manufactured in large numbers. Ownership of our locomotive was transferred to the Austrian State Railways in 1945, and it remained in service in Austria until 1978. It then stood on a siding for a few years until it was acquired by the city of Würzburg. It was intended for it to be turned into a monument in a part of the city built to house railway employees, but it proved too big and heavy to be transported through the streets, so instead it was thoroughly restored and returned to full working order, a process that took 14 years and was finally completed in 1998.
So we're now in Lauda for a few minutes because the train has to change direction, which means that we have to wait for the locomotive to be run round to the other end.
The poor locomotive broke down quite dramatically in 2011 and, following complicated repairs and more renovation work, re-entered service in December last year. And by the way, Lauda was one of the last depots for steam trains to be in service in West Germany, finally closing in 1975. Of course, the golden age of steam is great to look back on with nostalgia, but at times like this, I really appreciate the fact that today's soulless electric trains don't take 15 minutes just to change direction, and when you get back home, your clothes don't smell of smoke. But with this complex manoeuvre complete, we're back on our way to our journey's end.
So we were actually able to make up quite a bit of time, and I've now got about 2.5 hours to explore the town. So let's take a look. The name Wertheim comes from a word that usually describes an island in the middle of a river, but in this case it's not quite accurate. Wertheim was built where the river Tauber flows into the river Main.
It is claimed that Wertheim was founded as early as the 8th century, but the earliest references to it may in fact be to a different town with a similar name. In any case, it was probably originally on the other side of the River Main. Wertheim as we know it today began with the construction in the 12th century of a castle, and the original Wertheim is now called Kreuzwertheim. In the modern era, Wertheim was caught up in the 1848 revolution, which it was apparently all in favour of. Most famously, the revolutionary black-red-gold flag was flown from this tower. But the revolution didn't go very smoothly, with arguments over whether the new Germany was to be a republic or a constitutional monarchy.
During the revolution, this inn behind me became a meeting place for people wanting political discussions, and it became so notorious that locals started calling it the Krawallschachtel, which roughly translated means riot box.
It can also mean a person who tends to start or get involved in fights. In the event, the constitutional monarchists won the argument, but the monarch refused to cooperate, and so the revolution collapsed.
Okay, we're done. Time to go home, but not quite by the same route.
The train is now taking a more direct route down the Main to Aschaffenburg, where it will reverse again and make its way back to its home station in Würzburg. This circular route means that everyone gets a round trip of 240 kilometers, although anyone who boarded at Hanau or Darmstadt will have to make their own ways back home from Aschaffenburg. And maybe in future I'll get to visit Wertheim properly.
So that's the end of the line for me. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, there's a video just down there that I know you're really going to enjoy. Right, let's get some dinner.